Hello, my name is Stephanie Frank. I am one of the online students, and I am going to cover the topic, what is universal design? So universal design is providing essentially equal access to all users with 7 basic principles. And these 7 principles were created by Ron Mace and a group of his design researchers and practitioners across the United States. They were published in 1997 by NC State University, the Center for Visual Design. And here I have listed the 7 principles. So over the course of the next slides, we're going to go through each of the individual principles. And here we go. So number 1, equitable use is the driver for accessibility. So we need to consider all users, not just the target users, because think back to the last website that you stumbled on and you had no when you started off your search, you weren't even remotely going to that site. So, you just have to consider all users. So just in a design example, I have one listed out for each principle, but one thing to consider for this one, just use a strong color contrast, just because some users, and I know there were some statistics out there, I didn't provide exact ones, but color blindness is more common than I thought, actually. So whether you have a little bit or full on, if that makes sense, it's just we need to be conscious of our color choices. And as designers, we're constantly trying to focus on that, but there's other items to focus on here. So number 2 is flexibility in use. So basically we need to be aware of flexible, adaptable, or even having a customizable design. So the example for this one, I put providing customizable dashboards. So at my work, we use this CRM tool, which is a customer relationship management system. And depending on if you're just a salesperson or a manager, you can have different dashboards and what you're trying to view. Like the managers, they set theirs up more for statistics. So of the salespeople, they're watching all of the statistics. Whereas maybe in my department, I'm more focused on internet and phone leads. I work at a car dealership. So different departments have different focuses, so having that customizable ability is really helpful. And for number 3, the principle is simple and intuitive use, so having to reduce complex and mental or cognitive loads. So basically reduce the visual clutter because our attention spans are much shorter than they've ever been in years. And I thought this was very interesting. Humans can only handle 3 to 9 items in a short amount of time when processing information. So it's very, very interesting. So number 4, perceptible information. So regardless of how the customer or user is getting access to the information or how they're digesting it, the format needs to be delivered for all users, whether it's visually, audio, or in a video. So my example here, the video with a video transcription for hearing impaired users. So sometimes, even though I'm okay, I like to watch and read the video. I don't know if there's other users out there, but sometimes that's very helpful because if I missed something or I didn't totally understand what somebody said, having that transcription is helpful. So for number 5, tolerance for error. So this is pushing the designer to think beyond the screen and how the user and system interact. So an error-friendly environment. So this example, having form validation to reduce submission errors. So think of when you're trying to fill out a form online and it doesn't let you submit it because you get this red asterisk or places are highlighted that either it's input incorrectly or you're missing a couple digits or something like that. So number 6, low physical effort. So I thought this was also an interesting note. Most of us, depending on the job, spend 8 or more hours a day using computers and technology. So over the course of time, that can put a strain on our bodies, whether they're our minds, our eyes, our hands. Just think of how we're using this stuff. So whether there is a mobility issue or not, we should offer some other options on how to use things. So, for example, keyboard shortcuts are helpful. I know going through the exercise previously for this assignment, I was tabbing on some websites to try not to use my mouse, and it was very interesting. Some they tabbed in order, some they tabbed out of order completely, like where am I going on this page? Like I have no idea, no specific order. So just an interesting point that I had there. And then the last one is size and space for approach and use. So thinking of whether they're on the desktop or mobile, they're either going to be using their cursor or a finger or maybe a stylus pen. So wherever that cursor is going to hover or click, or their finger or their stylus pen, we need to be considerate of those target areas. So how they're viewing it and also using the site, how are they going to click essentially on your certain items. So I have my good example. So here we're going to go to Amazon. And I thought it was very interesting. Let me get out of here. So going to the desktop, they have a strong use of color. I tried viewing in grayscale as well. And because of all this negative space and how they have everything laid out, I thought it was a very good example. They also don't have anything overly cluttered. Everything's broken up to neatly specified areas. Some depends on your searching or your browsing history, buying history. And then another good point that I have, so in the 7 years that I've been using this and thinking of like errors and forms and validation, I can't actually recall any time that I had an issue with filling out a form or a shopping cart or purchasing. So it's kind of a good feeling to have. So the other point I have is, okay, so when we tab across items, it goes in a relatively order that my eye would go left to right, up to down. So that was something good. And then also between desktop and mobile, whether you're on the internet on your phone or on the app, it is very responsive. Here on the desktop, you're good. And then also, if we just pull up the developer tools, I was playing around with this earlier, depending on what you're on, but you can view small, big, it's just a really good example. So on the other scheme of things, we're going to go to my bad example, which is this gates and fences. And just right off the bat, the color scheme, my sensory is overloaded with information, colors, and actually the thing I thought ironic, when we go back to tabbing, trying to think, okay, if you're not using a mouse, how are you going to utilize this? And well, whenever we tab, I'm going not in any specific order. Like I'm going up, down, all over the page. It's not going through like all the navigation and then the information. It's kind of just throwing us around, just guessing on where to go. And then also, it's not responsive, like at all. I also looked on my phone, but we're going to do it on here too. So I have an iPhone 6. It literally loads the desktop view for mobile, so there's no responsive design at all. And ironically, if we go down all the way small, you see the big black in the background? That's, I believe, this top line right here. So if you're happening to view it, like you get the black text in the background, it's a good example of a bad example. So I thought this was very ironic. But just kind of wrapping up the 7 principles. Let me go back up here. You know, these are very good things to keep in mind. They can be applied to any style or trend. They are timeless, adaptable, whether you're using them physically for web design or product design. They're just good things to keep in mind for all users. And if you follow these 7 principles, you should succeed. Thank you for watching.